If you wake up at 3 a.m. after 60, and you're lying there staring into the dark, while the rest of the world seems peacefully asleep, let me talk to you like a real person for a moment. Not like a medical textbook, not like some robotic article online, but like someone sitting at the edge of your bed, whispering the truth you actually need to hear. Because that moment when your eyes open for no reason, and the red numbers on the clock say 3 o'clock or 3:17 or 3:42, that moment feels bigger than it should, doesn't it? It feels symbolic, almost dramatic in a quiet way. And your brain immediately starts asking questions. Why now? Why again? Is something wrong with me? Is this just aging? Is this stress? Is this God trying to tell me something? Is my body breaking down? And the truth is both simpler and deeper than most people realize. Because after 60, your body is not the same body you had at 30 or even 45. Your internal clock shifts forward. Your melatonin production drops. Your deep sleep shortens. And your cortisol begins rising earlier in the morning than it used to. And that hormone shift alone can gently push you toward wakefulness long before sunrise. But here's where it gets interesting, because the biological explanation is only half the story. And if it were only biology, then it wouldn't feel so emotional. It wouldn't feel so personal. It wouldn't come with that sudden rush of thoughts about your children, your finances, your health, your past mistakes, or the strange awareness of time moving faster than it used to. And that's the part people don't talk about enough. Because after 60, you are not just aging physically, you are transitioning psychologically. You are moving into a phase of life where identity quietly reshapes itself. You're no longer defined by raising kids or building a career or chasing ambition. And even if you still work or stay busy, something inside you knows the chapters are changing. And at 3 a.m., when the house is silent and the distractions are gone, that awareness can rise to the surface like mist over water. And sometimes it shows up as restlessness, sometimes as regret, sometimes as inspiration, sometimes as fear. And the body doesn't separate emotional processing from physical sensation. So your heart beats a little stronger, your eyes stay open a little longer, and you think you have insomnia when really your nervous system is simply alert, scanning, thinking, recalibrating. And there is also the very real factor of blood sugar fluctuations. Because as metabolism shifts with age, your body becomes more sensitive to late-night meals high in refined carbohydrates. And when blood sugar drops in the early morning hours, your brain triggers stress hormones to stabilize it. And those hormones wake you up whether you like it or not. And you might not even realize that your evening dessert or sweet tea or late snack is part of the cycle. And then there's the bathroom. Let's be honest. The bladder becomes less forgiving with age, prostate enlargement in men, hormonal shifts in women, lighter sleep overall. And once you get up even briefly, your brain can flip into alert mode and decide the night is over. And yet, what makes 3 a.m. awakenings feel so intense is not just the waking itself, but the meaning we attach to it. Because we check the clock and immediately calculate how many hours are left and panic slightly. And that small anxiety spike conditions the brain to associate the bed with stress. And the next night the cycle repeats, and soon the fear of waking becomes more powerful than the waking itself. Which is almost ironic. And here's something else that doesn't get enough attention. Many people over 60 carry unspoken stress that they insist they don't have. They say, "I'm retired. I have no deadlines. I'm fine." But their nervous system tells a slightly different story. Because stress at this stage of life often comes from subtle sources. From worrying about adult children, but not wanting to interfere. From thinking about medical test results, even when they're normal. From processing the loss of friends and realizing mortality is no longer theoretical. From wondering what purpose looks like now. And those are heavy questions, even if you rarely speak them out loud. And the mind often chooses the quietest hour of the night to explore them, not to torture you, but to process them. And there is also sleep apnea, which becomes more common with age and often peaks in early morning REM cycles. And many people wake briefly without realizing their breathing paused, and they assume it's just aging, when in fact it's treatable and manageable. And so the meaning of waking at 3 a.m. is layered. It can be hormonal, metabolic, respiratory, emotional, existential, or simply a natural shift in circadian rhythm that makes you more of an early bird than you used to be. And the mistake most people make is turning it into a catastrophe. Because the moment you label it as something dangerous or broken, your body responds with tension. And tension prevents sleep more effectively than aging ever could. And I've heard stories from men and women who say the moment they stopped fighting the wake-up, stopped staring at the clock, stopped telling themselves tomorrow would be ruined, their sleep improved gradually, not perfectly but peacefully. And there is something profoundly empowering about realizing that waking at 3 a.m. does not automatically mean something is wrong. Sometimes it simply means your body has changed, and your life has changed, and your rhythms have shifted. And instead of battling it like an enemy, you can approach it like information. Gentle information, and ask yourself what might be contributing. Is dinner too late? Is caffeine creeping into the afternoon? Is there unspoken worry sitting quietly in the background? Is there grief that never fully processed? And aging does not mean decline in every sense. Sometimes it means awareness increases, sensitivity increases, wisdom increases. And yes, sleep patterns change, but that does not mean you are fragile or failing. It means you are human in a later chapter. And the body in later chapters writes differently. And if you can read those signals without fear, if you can breathe slowly in the dark and remind yourself that being awake for a few minutes is not a crisis, you begin to remove the emotional charge from the experience. And that alone can shorten the duration of the wakefulness, because the brain relaxes when it feels safe. And at 3 a.m. safety is more powerful than any supplement or sleeping pill. And sometimes the most radical shift is not in medication, but in mindset. In the gentle statement you whisper to yourself, I am okay, this is normal, my body is adjusting. And that subtle reassurance can be stronger than you think. And yet there is another dimension to this that is rarely discussed in medical offices or quick online articles. And it's the quiet psychological awakening that often accompanies physical aging. Because after 60, you have lived enough life to know that time is not endless. You have attended more funerals than weddings recently. You have seen how quickly health can change. You have watched friends slow down or disappear. And somewhere deep inside, there is an awareness that the remaining years matter differently now. They feel precious in a way that younger years did not. And at 3 a.m., when distractions fade, that awareness can surface like a wave. And it may not even come as words. It may just be a feeling, a sense of urgency or reflection or unfinished business. And sometimes waking at that hour is less about insomnia and more about integration, about the mind organizing decades of memories and lessons and regrets into something coherent. And the human brain continues evolving, even in later life, forming new connections, revisiting old experiences with new interpretation. And the silence of early morning provides the perfect environment for that internal reorganization. And yes, sometimes it feels uncomfortable, because growth often does, but discomfort does not equal danger. And I want to gently challenge the idea that every 3 a.m. awakening must be solved or eliminated, because occasionally it can be utilized, not in a frantic way, but in a reflective way. If you wake and your mind is calm, you might use those moments for quiet gratitude, for slow breathing, for a simple prayer or intention. And many people find that reframing the hour transforms it from enemy to companion. And when the fear decreases, the frequency often follows. And let's also acknowledge practical realities. Hydration timing matters. Heavy late dinners matter. Long afternoon naps matter. Exposure to morning sunlight matters profoundly because light anchors your circadian rhythm stronger than almost anything else. And gentle evening routines signal safety to the brain. And none of these are complicated, but consistency is key. And the older nervous system thrives on rhythm and predictability, not chaos, and medications can also play a role. Blood pressure drugs, antidepressants, even certain supplements may influence sleep architecture. So reviewing them with a healthcare provider is wise, not out of panic, but out of curiosity. And if 3 a.m. wake-ups are paired with loud snoring, choking sensations, or extreme daytime fatigue, testing for sleep apnea is crucial because untreated apnea strains the heart and fragments rest deeply. And addressing it can feel life-changing, and still beyond all of these factors, there remains the human layer. The layer of identity and purpose and emotion. And after 60, many people quietly wrestle with questions about relevance, about legacy, about whether they have done enough or been enough. And those are not small questions. They are profound, and they deserve space. And sometimes that space arrives at 3 a.m. And instead of interpreting it as malfunction, you might consider it as invitation. An invitation to realign daily life with what truly matters now. Perhaps to reconnect with friends, to begin a modest project you postponed, to volunteer, to write, to walk more, to forgive someone including yourself. And when daytime life feels meaningful, nighttime anxiety often softens, because the mind rests easier when purpose feels clear. And I have seen people transform their sleep, not by chasing it obsessively, but by enriching their waking hours intentionally. And there is something almost poetic about that, because sleep is a reflection of how safe and fulfilled the mind feels overall. And if you are waking at 3 a.m. regularly, gently ask what might be unresolved. Not in a dramatic way, but in an honest way. Is there stress you dismiss? Is there grief you minimized? Is there fear about health that needs conversation rather than suppression? And subtle acknowledgement can reduce internal pressure dramatically. And also remember that perfection in sleep is unrealistic. Even younger adults wake during the night multiple times, but forget because they fall back asleep quickly. And as sleep becomes lighter with age, you simply remember those awakenings more, which can create the illusion that something new and alarming is happening, when in reality, the structure of sleep has shifted naturally. And accepting that shift reduces resistance. And resistance is often the loudest amplifier of insomnia. And so, if tonight you wake again at 3 a.m., instead of clenching your jaw or checking the clock with dread, try something different. Breathe slowly, lengthen your exhale. Relax your shoulders consciously. Tell your nervous system you are safe. And if sleep doesn't return after a while, rise gently without harsh light. Read something calming, avoid screens. And trust that rest still counts, even if it is quiet wakefulness. And over time, this compassionate approach retrains the brain. And the fear dissolves gradually, and the awakenings often become shorter, less dramatic, less loaded with meaning. And that is perhaps the deepest message of all. Waking at 3 a.m. after 60 does not automatically mean illness or decline. It often means transition, adjustment, awareness, and sometimes simply biology doing what biology does. And you are not broken. You are evolving. And evolution can feel strange in the dark, but it is still growth. And if there is one suggestion I want to leave you with, it is this. Treat your 3 a.m. self with kindness rather than criticism. Nourish your days with light movement, real connection, and honest reflection. Adjust your evenings gently toward calm and simplicity. Speak with a doctor if symptoms feel intense or unusual. And above all, refuse to let a single hour define your health or your future. Because after 60, your life is not shrinking into the night, it is deepening into wisdom. And even at 3 a.m. in the quiet darkness, there is strength in you that has survived decades. And that strength is still there, breathing steadily, waiting for morning.